Where do you want to start?
You tell me. And we start from the beginning, where it's Father's Day of last year, the 1-year anniversary. I'm sitting there with my kid, lights out, and we go into surgery. 3 weeks after that, my left eye crashes. We go back into surgery. I mean, it's like between August 22nd and September 28th. I mean, like, it was bad. I was 24 years old. I was working at a car dealership selling trucks, and I had just bought a brand new boat because I lived by the water. All my buddies had one, and it was kind of a gift and a curse because I bought it and it sat in the driveway for the longest time because I worked on Saturdays, and all my buddies were like, "Hey man, come get on the boat. We're at the sandbar. Come hang out with us." And hearing that weekend after weekend after weekend, finally I was like, "Look, I've had enough." I walked into my boss's office. I was like, "Hey, like, I'm gonna go enjoy life." And he's like, "Well, that's the most honest answer I've ever heard." And I told him, he's like, "What are you gonna go do?" And I said, "I don't know." I was like, "I love filming. I'm gonna go pick up a camera and I'm just gonna go fish." And he goes, "Okay." So I hooked the boat to the truck, picked up a camera, started a YouTube channel, and took off from there. Woo! YouTubers, what's up? It is the life of Matt Jackson. And if you're just tuning in, my name is Matt. And this channel, if you don't know what it is about having fun, doing crazy shit, and just point blank enjoying life, because that is what we do. Going up and down the East Coast, traveling, trying to call sponsors to get funding and get sponsorships for clothes and gear and all that other stuff. And I was good at it. I did it for 3 or 4 months straight, and then the sponsors started rolling in, and it was finally, I got to the point to where it was, my dream was becoming true. I was able to fish and make a living off of it, and just going out and being on the water every day for me was a blessing. And then you fast forward 2 months later.
I gotta catch my breath. Daisy just started contracting. She's on the way to the hospital. Kyle's with me. So I'm gonna cut the camera off. We got a haul. We gotta go from Georgia to South Carolina. I'm about to be a daddy, hopefully. Woohoo! The best catch of the day, literally.
So what's his height, weight, and all that?
6 pounds, 14 ounces, and 18 inches long. So he was slot size.
He was slot size.
There you have it, guys. Again, I am lost for words. I am officially a daddy. Brightland Tate Jackson is here. Kyle's here with me. We're holding it down. Daisy's in the bed. Daisy, you want to say hey? You can't see her. You can't see her, of course, but she's got a surgery. But everything's going good. The baby's healthy. And we ended on one crazy day. I will never forget this fishing trip. Neither will Kyle.
Best fishing trip ever.
Best fishing trip ever. A couple of weeks after that, we went to go put the John boat in the water to do a practice run with my buddy. We put in, and I start freaking out. Hey, Kyle. Kyle, is my eye bleeding?
Is your eye bleeding?
Yeah. I can see blood in my retina.
No? Which eye?
This one.
Here. Boat's moving away.
That was what started me losing my vision. And then after that, we did a bunch of laser surgeries to try to stop the bleeding.
It was weird because he kept saying, "Oh my gosh, all I see is blood." And I was like, "What are you talking about? Your eyes look normal." And he started panicking, and when he started panicking, I started panicking. And I honestly had no idea what to do. Because I don't guess I've never experienced it, and I couldn't see anything. You would think when somebody says their eye is bleeding, you'd see blood like gushing out, but you don't.
Long term of laser surgeries and stuff, it started doing tissue growth, and the tissue growth started pulling my retina apart. And it wasn't maybe 6 or 7 months after we did laser surgeries that we were sitting there, and I remember looking at Brightland. He was 8 months old, and it was lights out, and that was the last time that I saw my son.
Get him, Brightland.
I feel like any 26-year-old would hit severe depression, but you add being a father to that, and that'll crush anybody. And there's no worse feeling than being a
felt like a helpless parent, and I did, and I think it impacted my family a lot. Because I couldn't do basic functions. I couldn't change his diaper. I couldn't watch him by myself because there was no telling what would happen. But I mean, I could hold him, and I felt a connection. But it's almost like, am I really connected to something that I can't see? And that's the adjustment that was the hardest to get used to.
I guess I accepted it and was like, okay, well, if this is what's our plan, then we'll figure it out. And I just kind of dealt with it. But I mean, all I've had to do is accept it. There's nothing I can do about it. I can't change anything. If I could heal him, I would. So I was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes at age 7, and just the longevity of being a diabetic, blood sugars up and down, going through juvenile diabetes, and then going through puberty, and then having to deal with the insulin changes and insulin dosages. And I was in and out of comas probably 5 or 6 times. It either hits the kidneys or the eyes, and usually in type 1 it starts hitting the eyes, but with this one it was a hard hit.
He said everything went well. He said there was a lot of blood back there, more than he realized. There was a lot of blood, and a lot of fluid, and a lot of scar tissue, but he was able to get it all out.
And everybody is sitting there waiting like, what's Matt's next move? And then 2 weeks later, my left eye crashes, and the doctor's looking at me, and they're like, we're not supposed to operate on both eyes because that will leave you in darkness. And he said at this point we have no choice. And I get so sick before my second surgery that I was actually hospitalized. And my dog died at the same time, so it was like not only dealing with that depression, but then losing, your man's best friend. The day before I went to surgery, my retina completely detached. The doctor walks into the room, my mom, and she's like, how'd the surgery go? He said, anatomically, everything looks correct. He said, only time will tell. And that day was the best day and then the worst day in the same sense, because it never got any better after that. It has wiped out almost everything. Colorblind. I have no straight-on vision nor peripheral, so if you look like a ring, that would be the outer band of that ring would be what I see on my eye. Even with that there, I don't think one can understand it until you've actually been in that shoes, but you're not left with much. And my left eye is completely gone. The muscles are so weak in it that even if I had corrective surgery for it, that it'll drift over.
What you got?
Everything just started tumbling down. It was sponsors dropping me not being able to use my boat, me not being able to use my truck, parking everything, and then going through a financial struggle of losing the house, going into an apartment, and trying to support a family.
Can you climb it?
And at some point, you hit rock bottom.
There you go.
And you get thoughts of suicide, severe depression, not wanting to be a part of life anymore. And that's not a place nobody wants to be, physically and mentally. I can promise you that. And by the grace of God, I found Mike. And scuba diving saved my life. I started diving 4 years ago. I got my certification. I love finding teeth. I've hunted them for years. Any kind of adventure, really, I love.
I couldn't care less about shark teeth. It did nothing for me. And then he got me on a really big megalodon tooth one time, and I was just like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, there you go. Look at this, guys. Like, legit, everything is there.
I'm shaking.
You start hunting shark teeth and you start learning about the community. Well, this guy kept coming up called the Shark Tooth Fairy.
Megalodon, it's up to 32 million years old, or up to 20 million years old, but the Angustidens are up to 32 million years old. Well, the cool thing is this shark and this shark are actually the same shark, but 32 million years ago they evolved, and by 20 million years ago they turned into megalodon.
Come to find out, he actually lived maybe 45 minutes from my house, so I shot him a message one day. I was like, I'd love to come along with you and film one of your dives. He's like, right back, he's like, yeah, absolutely, be at the dock and we'll go.
This is the one and only Mike, the Shark Tooth Fairy,
Hey fellas.
and his dive friend Caleb. But yeah, guys, this is the man, the myth, the legend.
I'm just a redneck with a scuba tank.
If you don't know who he is, you are totally missing out. We're gonna find some teeth today.
I think we'll find some.
He puts on his dive tank, he goes down, and 2 hours later he comes back up.
And this is where a shark was just gnawing the flipper off of a big whale. But you can see it, it's plain as day, that's teeth marks.
Yeah.
And how deep it goes. I mean, that's bone too. I mean, at least, you know.
See how it fits in there perfect?
Yeah.
And at that point, I was like, this is awesome. Like, this is so cool. And that was the beginning of mine and Mike's relationship as far as him motivating me and being a father figure and inspiring me to do all this stuff.
2,500 megalodon teeth are being found today. Long story behind it. I'll give you guys a breakdown when we get further in, but I gotta find Mike first. Heard it from the man himself. Again, you'll not meet a more genuine person than Mike Harris, aka the Shark Tooth Fairy, aka one of my good friends.
We're gonna have a good time today.
Oh yeah, it's good.
It's gonna be a great day.
You could not ask for better weather.
You're gonna get some good pictures of kids holding big
yeah.
shark teeth,
Oh, yeah.
and man, and you know what blows their mind? When you tell them that's 20 million years old. Blows their mind.
It's funny because Mike is literally a superhero when it comes to shark's teeth. These kids love him, so this is really cool, real humble experience to be here with Mike, even be a part of this whole thing, guys. So this is honestly breathtaking.
We were coming out of the fourth eye surgery. You know, the next couple of days you're sitting there on the sofa in the house, and you're sitting there like evaluating your life, like, okay, I'm blind. What is there that I can do? What is there that I can't do? And then scuba diving came across mind, and like that almost hit me as hard as it did with not being able to see Brightland and interact with him. It was like everything was stripped away. I'd always talked about stuff with Mike because I knew Mike dealt with depression, and we were sitting there on the dock, and I told Mike that I couldn't scuba dive anymore, being that I couldn't see. And he did a long pause, and he holds me by the shoulder. He's like, you don't need to see what we're doing. He's like, this is black water. He goes, if anything, is braille diving. He said, if you can learn to dive blind, almost all the best teeth that I've ever found were in no visibility at all. He said, I had to feel for them. And he said, if you can adapt to that, then, man, he said, you've got a weapon in disguise, and you don't even know it. Mike has always been the one to never let anything stop him from doing what he's done. I sat on that thought and in that conversation, verbatim what he told me, for 2 or 3 weeks, and it was like eating at me, just constantly every single day, like, hey, remember what Mike told you? Hey, remember what Mike told you? And every time I reminded myself that, it was like a little bit up or out of the depression, and it kept like getting momentum, and it was fueling fire, and the fire kept getting more and more and more, and finally I'd had enough. And that's when all this stuff really kicked off. When you type in locations to find Blackwater, the #1 spot you're going to find is going to be South Carolina. South Carolina falls in the megalodon breeding grounds. It falls into the Edisto River, the Ashley, the Morgan, all of which are extremely high current rivers that open out to the Atlantic, and they are black water. For some reason, that location area just has that sediment in the water that just turns it that color, and that's the stomping ground for megalodon tooth divers. Black river diving is where you can't see your hand in front of your face. It is nasty, it is scary, it is dirty, it is fast. There's a lot of words to describe black water. None of them are good, and you have to be a crazy person to do it, so they say. They call us crazy people, but I feel right at home.
I mean, honestly, I just told him to go do whatever's going to get him out of his depression and you know, acting somewhat normal, I told him to just go do it. If it makes him happy, then please go.
We were having a hard time determining how was it possible to get me in the water safely. And we came up with this concept of a full face mask. And we reached out to OTS.
Yeah? Okay, so tighten down the mask.
We knew how the full face mask worked, but in worst case scenarios, how could we train to maximum knowledge? The initial 4 days we stayed in the pool working with Ben, going over classes, training, being in the pool at a depth of 15 feet, worst case scenarios and stuff like that. They had an intercom system, and that comm system would go directly to my dive buddy, and then we had a surface unit that would go directly to the boat.
Comm check, Matt, do you copy?
Copy, I hear you.
It made things a lot easier underwater, because if you've never dove before, communication underwater is very hard. Not especially when you can't see, because you can't sign language to none of them, or at least I couldn't. They could to me, but there's no point. But that comm system was a game changer. Being in the water, having my gear on, knowing at this point, like, I still have purpose. Like, with this speed bump in my life, or whatever you want to call it, disability or whatever, you can still do stuff that makes you happy.
So what are we doing here today, Matt?
Today's the first mock-up dive of getting me back in Black River, or Black Water. Nothing too serious, about 6, 7, 8 foot right now. We called it a dead low. However, just because it's not deep water, these currents are the strongest that we will be swimming in. So it's kind of, we're working with strong currents, but not at a deep depth. So if anything does happen, I can come straight up to the surface. We'll see how it goes. Nervous, really nervous. This is different than being in a pool with clear water where we got all the elements against us. So we'll see. And then it starts sinking in, like, okay, am I dumb? Is this like, am I an idiot? Like, do I have a death wish? Are you staying with me the whole time?
Huh?
Stay with me the whole time, though. That initial leap into the water, and then going down, and then popping back up like a buoy, it was refreshing. And at that point, it was like, okay, let's do it.
Good.
Where's the boat anchor right there?
Yep, right in front.
All at once, I got one stingray tooth, a small broken piece.
The enjoyment of just floating in a black abyss, it's just, there's some tranquility to it. It's not me struggling to walk, it's not me worrying about running into something, it's just me in my own little environment, feeling around and searching on an adventure. What'd you think about first time Blackwater diving?
I couldn't see anything.
So
I was scared.
I was gonna say, is it scary?
I sunk so fast, it scared the crap out of me. And then I couldn't see anything, so I didn't know what I was gonna come up on.
But once you find teeth, I mean, I think you'll be hooked.
I guess. I mean, I'm already addicted to finding shark's teeth.
Well, we got a hunt coming up, so we're going to go take them down to Alabama, hide them out on the beaches in the sand, and let these kids find them. Like I said, it's nothing like seeing a bunch of kids run out there and finding a tooth that they wouldn't normally find on land that's bigger than their hand, and seeing the enjoyment on their faces. Same enjoyment that we do every single time, no matter how big or how small that tooth is. When you find it on the bottom and you hold it, you're holding a piece of history, and that's a feeling that is indescribable. I get chills talking about it because it's just so cool. You can't put into words, again, of giving taking a shark's tooth that you've had a connection with and hand it over to a child and seeing the expression on their face. Or with me, it's hearing it, like the thousands of questions that spark their mind. And to me, I guess losing one sense, all your other senses heighten, but it's almost like you can feel the glow around them when they get it and they're holding it in their hand. You can connect to something that you can't see. And I would say now that the connection I had with the shark's teeth was helping me connect with Brightland. Going blind was a blessing because I'm able to sit here right now and tell people and show people around the world that no matter what you do, no matter what disability you have, where you're going in life, how dark your time is, your thought process, what the doctors say, what anybody says, that there is light at the end of the tunnel. If I can sit there and go through it, I would tell anybody that it can be done. It can be done. Don't ever let it stop you doing from what you love doing.